Hello everyone, it is Joe here from Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon, and today we're looking at an Evolutions deck. This is going to be quite a fun rogue. I don't think Beedrill is ever going to see too much top competitive play, but it's definitely an interesting card and a great throwback to an old classic, so I thought it would be worth getting a profile up here. There's really not too many decent decks for Evolutions, maybe a few updates for things like Mega Rayquaza and Mega Gardevoir. But really, in terms of actual new content, we're getting maybe just Beedrill and a few Raticate builds that we can try out. So, although it's a new set, you're not going to see too many new original ideas from us. But hopefully, a few that do pop up are going to be still entertaining for you. So, let's jump into the list. For the Pokemon, it's very simple for this deck. We can have 4 Talonflame because this is a great lead Pokemon. It has free retreat, which really bodes well for this deck. It means that we play no switch cards in the entire list, because the Beedrill also has a free retreat cost. So it's similar to a Greninja in that regard, where we're going to try and move between our attackers throughout the game if possible. As long as we can tank hits with some of our dudes, that's actually really helpful for this deck. And the attack is really handy as well. Aero Blitz is 1 colourless for 40. The 40 damage itself is already really important because Beedrill's maxes out at 160, and that's never enough to KO things. So having the poking for 40 can really help deal with EX Pokemon, so already it's worth playing Talonflame just for damage, but it also allows us to search the deck for up to 2 of any card and put them straight into the hand. Gives us great early game, just hand presence, so that we can start searching out these Beedrills because we need to find plenty of them to get our strategy going. So having this early game search is going to be really, really handy for us. So just for Talonflame, a really important card. I guess I'll put it over here. Next up, I don't have the Evolutions cards yet because they're not legal, so I've gone and got out all my old base set cards. Fortunately for us, the Weedle does not change at all. The only thing now is that the fire type is, the fire weakness is ×2. That's like the only difference from this Weedle. So it's a 40 HP basic with 1 retreat. Its attack for a grass does 10, flip a coin of heads. The opponent is poisoned. This is an attack you're pretty much never going to use, as long as you can help it. Obviously, if you don't lead with Talonflame, you're going to try and do it whenever you can. But yeah, there's not too much to mention about this card. You just need to max it out because basically the whole deck relies on trying to get 4 Beedrill into play. So you need to have 4 of this guy, as well as 4 Kakuna. And this is almost completely unchanged. It's actually nerfed, this Kakuna, which is hilarious to think that they had to nerf a base set card in the new format. Its first attack, Stiffen for 2 colourless energy, used to be prevent all effects of damage on the coin flip. Now it's to reduce it by 40, I believe. So again, it's not really a relevant attack, but it's something to bear in mind. 80 HP, 2 retreat cost, kind of clunky. Its second attack is 2 grass, you do 20, and again flip that coin for poison. But really, you're going to try and keep these protected while you set up your Beedrills. Never really going to be attacking with the lower forms. Fortunately, because of Forested Giant Plants, we can hope to get into our Beedrill ASAP. And this is the new star of the deck, Beedrill. This card has changed completely, so take no notice of these real attack costs. I just wanted to show off the picture, because I couldn't really be bothered to print off proxies for this card. I've got it all memorized. It's 120 HP. It has free retreat, which is great, and it has its first attack for a single grass, does just 30, and has automatic poison. Again, like I was saying with the Talonflame, getting that initial poke is actually really relevant sometimes for dealing 2-hit KOs. As we move into the second attack, which is for a grass and colourless energy, you do 40 times the amount of Beedrill you have in play. So it's actually really difficult to get multiple stage 2s in play, even though we are a grass type. This is like the only saving grace for Beedrill. We're a grass type, so we use Forested Giant Plants to get these out as quickly as possible, and we have Revitaliser to try and spam these as well. So the whole deck from here is basically just crazy ball search and item draw to try and get into the Beedrills as quickly as possible. And then we have a really high Revitaliser count to try and keep the board presence once we've found all of our bees in the first place. That's basically the premise of the deck. The best thing about the attack is that it can not only be on the active, but it can be on anywhere on the opponent's side of the field. So Beedrill's been hailed as a good little Shaman EX killer, and other things like that. You can just take out anything on your opponent's side of the field as long as you're, you know, hitting enough damage with these snipes. So that's really why Beedrill is an interesting card. I don't think it's all that playable right now, but it's definitely a point of discussion if nothing else. So for Pokemon, that's all we're playing. No other basics in the deck because it ruins the odds of hitting Talonflame, and that is a really important card to have in the deck. So onto our trainers now. We are playing one Town Map. Really important card in here because if you prize any piece of your Beedrill line, it means that you're getting one less Beedrill out, which is 40 less damage every turn you attack. So you want to find the town map, and when you're taking your initial prizes, you can fish out the extra pieces of the bees. So in future turns, you're doing the right amount of damage. Very important stuff. For some aggressive draw power, we're using 3 Trainer's Mail alongside 3 Acro Bike. The dream for Acro Bike is that you have the choice to discard 1 card, and that card is Talonflame, because Talonflame is always a dead card in your deck. Even if you start with 1, you have 3 that are guaranteed dead cards. So the dream is to Acro Bike, and it's going to thin your deck of useless cards, like Talonflame. There's also the option of discarding things like the Beedrill pieces to combo off with Revitaliser. It's something you don't want to do too often though, because oftentimes during a game these things are going to get KO'd in the first place. So you need to sort of keep Revitaliser around for that. Speaking of Revitaliser, we are playing the 3 count. 3 is a fairly high count, but I think it's really important because we need to recover so many pieces so frequently of this Beedrill line to maintain a good damage output. I think it's really, really relevant to have this higher count. On to the ball search. 3 level ball, so that we can get into the lower pieces as quickly as possible. Following up with 4 repeat ball. Repeat ball finds a really nice home in this deck. We don't like discarding too many things other than Talonflame in this deck, so Ultra Ball kind of feels out of place. Repeat Ball's great because all we're trying to spam is this whole evolution line. So if it's early on in the turn, you can grab more Weedles. Then you can grab more Kakunas and start grabbing more Beedrills as you push to the late game. So Repeat Ball is amazing value in here for spamming the bees as quickly as possible. Further on from the trainers, we're still playing the 4vs Seeker. That doesn't change despite the deck being so wildly different in almost every other aspect. And then we're playing 3 Exp Share, a really important card in this deck as well. The only tool that we're playing, because of the 2 energy attack cost of the Beedrill, having Exp Share on bench dudes means that we can hopefully spam the attack every turn, even if our Beedrill in the active is getting knocked out. So let's move some of these cards out the way as we move on to the supporters now. Supporter line is kind of thin. We're playing 1 Hex Maniac. This is obviously going to be important for a couple of things. Weirdly enough, one of the biggest things you have to worry about is actually Mr. Mime. I know Mr. Mime's not around quite that often, but as long as he is around, you need to counter him. So you can Hex and then snipe the Mr. Mime for a KO, and then from there you can snipe, you know, whatever else you want to throughout the game. So Hex has to counter Mr. Mime, as well as just slowing things down in general on the first turn, freeing yourself from item lock under Vileplume, all sorts of reasons why Hex is good in general. But you actually have to play the card because of Mr. Mime. We are playing 1 Teammates. This is a non-EX focused deck, so Teammates is also really helpful in here. Just so that once we do suffer a KO, we can Teammates and hope to get back extra pieces that we need. We can go ahead and find a Revitaliser and maybe an energy to keep the stream of attackers going. These sorts of things are really helpful. Teammates helps us dig the deck for those specific cards. Next up we have 3N. We're slow in our approach. It does take a while to get multiple stage 2s up, even though we are these grass types. So N is going to hopefully balance us out, disrupt the opponent, and get us drawing as well without painful discards. That's why we're only playing the 3 count of Professor Sycamore. I'm favouring a slightly higher count of the N and relying on things like Teammates over having to Sycamore every single turn, because those discards can be painful. There'll be times when you have Beedrill before you found Forest or Kakuna, these sorts of things. So you don't really want to Sycamore these away, because it just puts a strain on your things like Revitaliser, so that would be awkward. So I think just a 3 count is fine. There are still obviously turns where you have to be aggressive with this deck, try and just find as many bees as possible. And because we have a really high engine of item cards and insta-play ball search cards, normally we can lower the hand size quite low, so Sycamore's not that painful oftentimes. So that's it for the supporters. And the stadiums, as you can imagine, for Forested Giant Plants to really kick us off. It's, you know, what we look for immediately in the opening turn so that we can start spamming the bees as quickly as possible. Again, very simple stuff. To round out the deck, we are just playing a very simple 8 count of Grass Energy. 8 Grass is going to be fine for helping us stream the Beedrills. With Exp Share the whole time, we shouldn't have too much trouble. I think there's an argument to going down to 7 in here. The only real issue being then that you really sometimes can miss out on Talonflame and things like that, which could be awkward for you, but I guess I can see it working. I can definitely consider this slot being a Brock's Guts. I haven't got one at the moment, that's pretty much why I haven't gone for that. But I can see Brock's Guts being really handy in here again because we need so much Pokemon recycle. The whole deck is based on keeping a high count of bees around. So Brock's Guts gives us a bit more safety. I like it more than just something like a 4th Revitaliser because Brock's Guts is recoverable throughout the game and it's more powerful inherently. And changing it out for a Grass Energy sort of fills the void of you worrying about your Grass Energy count because Brock can also get back energy. So there's definitely a huge debate to having a Brock in here over an 8th Energy. And I'd just suggest that you test that out for yourselves and see how that goes. Other alternatives in this deck, I would say Giovanni's Scheme could also be an interesting supporter. We are capped at 160. Obviously Brock's Guts only works for the active Pokemon, but despite the option to snipe at times, oftentimes you will still want to damage the active because that's often the thing that's attacking you and it's often the threat that you want to deal with first rather than just race reprisals the whole time. So Giovanni could find its slot in here. Similarly, something like a 1-1 Ariados line. Maybe if you're not playing a Talonflame build, if you're playing something like Octillery, I could definitely see a 1-1 Ariados being cool, especially because we have so many Revitaliser. We can spam the Ariados. And again, it does a similar thing to what I was saying with Giovanni. You can push that extra little bit of damage, which can be handy at times. So yeah, those are some cool options. I think for tools, you are pretty much stuck with the Exp Share. But I know quite a few non-EX decks like to test out Bursting Balloon and see how that functions for them. I personally think Exp Share is too important to cut right now, but you could also test and see how you like using the Balloon method, because then it again releases the pressure and having so many Beedrill out. Maybe you just have 2 or 3 out during a game and you're letting things like balloons add up that damage as well. So there is some definite inherent strengths in here. Sniping is always a good thing in the TCG, and it's just a bit awkward to try and get as many Beedrills out as possible. But there is some sort of potential here, and who knows, this crazy rogue might eventually find a home in the format with a bit of extra support or a correctly built deck. So I'd love to hear your opinion on Beedrill. Is it going to be an absolute flop, or is there huge potential behind this card? I'd love to hear what you have to say. I hope you did enjoy the list, and it's a good starting point for you at the very least, and gets you thinking about how you would like to build Beedrill yourselves. And that's pretty much the emphasis of this deck, because right now I don't see a huge amount of potential with this card. Or I guess I see potential, but I don't see it being crazy like tier 1 from the offset. But it's one to keep in the binder and keep an eye on for a certain point maybe down the line where we get some extra support for this guy, where this card could eventually become pretty decent, because there is some strengths to this card for sure, and I think it's a cool one to test out, at the very least for things like league challenges and stuff, where you can just go up and have some fun with something like Beedrill, and who knows, you can go ahead and win with the right sorts of matchups as well. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you did enjoy the video. Please leave a like if you did, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. For now though, it has been Joe from Omnipoke, and I will see you guys next time.